Christopher Nolan returns to Cineplexes with Matthew McConaughey in tow as they take people to infinity and beyond with his brand new film Interstellar. And that's what we're taking a look at in this episode of The Real Deal. Welcome back to The Man Attic. I'm Kevin Pauly.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And we are sorry it has been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. But we're back talking about what is arguably, I think, going to be one of the more discussed films of 2014, and that is Interstellar. Brian, you and I saw this together, and I've had a couple days to think about it, and it's one of those movies that really hasn't left my mind upon seeing it. Since we've had a couple of days to think about it, though, what are your thoughts on Interstellar?
Well, you know, like most Nolan movies, I mean, it's certainly one that swings for the fences. I mean, Christopher Nolan, he doesn't do simple romantic comedies. He doesn't do light fare. I mean, right out of the gate with movies like Memento, he's definitely a filmmaker that wants to deal with complex themes, and certainly that's something that I applaud. And I mean, this movie is no different. I mean, it certainly tries to be, you know, more complex in your typical summer popcorn type of a movie.
Yeah, you know, it is a very ambitious film. There's no stopping that. It is, whether you love it or hate it or somewhere in between, you can't deny that this film has a very large scope, and it's really trying to bring something new. You know, unfortunately, we have no IMAX screens around here. I can only imagine how engrossing some of the visual elements of the film would be, you know, in an IMAX setting. But you know, for this review, we're not going to get into spoiler territory. Obviously, we just kind of hit some of the basics of sort of what the story is and what we thought of it. So don't worry about spoilers. We're not going to get into that here. You know, first things first. I think, you know, a movie like this, you know, the characters are definitely going to be important because, you know, you're in space, you're in this huge, vast, you know, universe in this small little ship, and if you don't get along with the people on that ship, then there's really not much point in taking the trip. I will say right out the gates on this, I think McConaughey's performance in this is very strong, and he definitely gives this gigantic universe a very grounded center, I think.
Yeah, oh, I certainly think so. I mean, really, all the characters are very well drawn, I think, and I mean, that's certainly something that the Nolan brothers are really good at doing, is coming up with very compelling characters, very interesting, multi-layered characters, and certainly this movie has a plethora of them.
Well, I'll say that I think the best characters in it definitely belong to Matthew McConaughey's character of Cooper and his daughter Murphy, played by Mackenzie Foy, who I think does a wonderful job. She really, in essence, is the heart and soul of the picture. And when you see the film, that will make a little more sense to you when I say that. Now, for me, there are a couple of characters that I was sort of meh with. You know, Anne Hathaway's character is one that seems to be kind of a dividing point for a lot of people. And it's not that I think she gives a bad performance, I just didn't really get into her character. Michael Caine, of course, is fine. He's always serviceable and does a very nice job as a scientist. And there is a cameo that we won't spoil, but that cameo role was very well played.
Right.
But it was an element that, honestly, I could have done without in the film. I think the other word that I used for this film, and it's a word that you and I used when we discussed The Dark Knight Returns, or I'm sorry, The Dark Knight Rises, I'm sorry, my apologies, and that was, it's a little indulgent. It is nearly 3 hours long, and I just feel like there are certain things that could have been edited out, one being the cameo role. That whole situation could have been shortened, condensed, or even removed for my taste, and it still wouldn't have hurt the overall feeling of the film. For me, it was not a perfect film, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't impressive.
Yeah.
It's a very impressive film, and on a visual level alone, it's a film that I'm sure will be up, you know, for nomination come Academy Awards time. There are some really amazing visuals in it. The concepts being executed there, the idea of traveling, you know, through a wormhole, the idea of traveling across the, you know, the universe in this very unique-looking designed ship. I also like the hardware. I mean, I think that the ship itself is very neat looking, and I love the robots. Tars is one of those neat characters that really you wouldn't expect what looks almost like, oddly enough, the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey if it had a screen. You don't expect a whole lot, but the more you see him and the more he does, you're just like, I want one of those, and I want one right now.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And you know, the thing about it is, I really do enjoy this movie because, I mean, it is truly a science fiction film, which is very difficult to get in theaters these days.
I would agree.
I mean, your typical science fiction movie is, you know, lots of explosions with sort of a science fiction thing.
More of an action film with sci-fi.
Exactly, and you know, and this really is a science fiction film, and you know, I have to, you know, I'm happy to see it, definitely.
Oh yeah, you know, here's the thing. It's hard for me to like say that I do have issues with it, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy the film.
Right.
I just don't think it's a perfect film.
Yeah.
But do I think it's a good film? Yes, I do think it's a good film.
I certainly admire the fact that the Nolan brothers were willing to write and put this out. But I will say this about the film. I mentioned Memento earlier. That was their first really major studio
not counting
film.
Hard 8. That was their first big one.
And it was their only film that they've been able to put under 2 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, their films have been getting consecutively
longer and longer.
They're getting longer and longer. Now, they put out good films, so they have that ability to do this. But I don't know what their next project is. But
it's probably going to be 5 hours long.
Well, I think at this point, they've gotten their films about as long as they're going to be able to.
They need to start writing for miniseries.
Well, what they need to do, honestly, is they need to put a challenge for themselves, which is to say they need to give themselves 120 pages and put a movie under that, because brevity is the soul of wit. I think they're really beginning to lose the ability to tell a tight story, because they do have that ability, because they do put out good movies that make money. They have that ability to come out with a 2.5, nearly 3 hour long movie and get it made. They need to start cutting back on that. I think they need to limit themselves to an under 2 hour movie and put that discipline on them and get some storytelling back. And I think
there you go, Christopher and Jonathan Nolan. The challenge has been issued. I guess wrapping things up, this is a movie that I would definitely say, if you're on the fence about seeing it, if you're a science fiction person at all,
yeah,
I highly, highly, highly recommend you see it. And not only see it on the biggest screen you possibly can.
Yeah.
If you have access to IMAX, then by all means, see it in IMAX. But if not, find the largest screen around you and see it. Because I will say this, much like Gravity last year, this is one of those movies that you don't want to wait and see it in the confines of a smaller screen.
Yeah.
It is meant to be seen where the visual is beyond your peripheral.
Yeah.
We actually kind of sat up close to the screen, and it was very engrossing because everywhere I looked, this film was surrounding me. Is it perfect in my eyes? No. But that's not to say it's not a great movie and not worth your time seeing. I will say this. There does come a point in the third act. There is an event that happens. I will say this. You will either be with the film at this point, or you will think it is the most like horrible thing possibly you could have ever seen. It is definitely a moment that is going to divide people. There will be no about it. You're either going to be with it or you're not.
Yeah.
I was with it in the long run, but it took a little bit for me to kind of figure out if I was liking it or not. Hindsight being 20/20 and having time to think about it, I thought it was actually kind of neat. Not the most perfect thing and not what I exactly would have gone with, but it worked. Brian, your thoughts, I guess, as we wrap up.
Yeah, I would definitely say I enjoyed the film. I love science fiction. It was a really good 3-hour film. I think it would have been a fantastic 2-hour film.
I would agree on that too. You know, this is a movie that definitely has a lot of things going for it. It has really great performances, especially the main heart and soul of it being Matthew McConaughey as Cooper and his daughter Mackenzie Foy as Murphy, who is fantastic. And Jessica Chastain also does wonderful work in this. Hathaway is serviceable. I'm not going to say that she does a bad job. She doesn't. And Wes Bentley is just kind of there. I mean, there are other characters who are just kind of there for exposition's sake, it kind of feels like. And so that's where, to me, the screenplay could have been condensed and things could have been a little less spoon-fed. But it's still a good screenplay. It's still a neat story. But in the end, you know, it's definitely one of those, you need to see it for yourself. Don't ever let anyone, including us, tell you, what you should or shouldn't think about it. But, what did you think at home? What did you think of Interstellar? Please let us know in the comments below. What are your thoughts about maybe the third act? Now, I'll try to be careful if you do put anything spoiler related. Please make a note of that below. Don't spoil it for others, because of course that's just the most terrible thing you can possibly do. But anyway, again, let us know what your thoughts are, and again, we look forward to hearing what you think about it. Our Man Addict fanatics, you are definitely what keep us going. So keep the discussion going down below, and again, let us know your thoughts. And I hope that you do get a chance to go out and see Interstellar. It is definitely recommended. I can't say it's for everyone, but I do feel like everyone should at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to maybe kind of say that.
I certainly would say that, yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of The Real Deal. Thank you for joining us up here in the Mad Attic. Until next time, I'm Kevin Powell.
And I'm Brian Hatcher.
And we'll see you next time.